You're about to hear about that night. The night millions of people in Denver watched my husband, the man I built, erase me from my own life, live on air. They thought it was a promotion announcement. They were wrong. It was a public execution. And I was ready with my weapon, right in front of everyone. My name is Maya Walsh. I am 39 years old, and I am the executive producer of Denver Primetime on KDEV 12. In television, there are faces and there are brains. I am the brain. My husband, Mark Thompson, is the face. He's the golden boy of Denver, the trusted anchor who smiles into the camera at 6 p.m. and makes the city feel safe. He's the man I found 12 years ago, raw and clumsy, a weekend weather guy from a tiny market, and I molded him. I taught him how to read a prompter without sounding like a robot, how to hold a grieving person's hand without looking like a vulture, and how to pronounce the names of city council members he was privately mocking. I built his career, and in the process, I built our life. We were the story, the ultimate media power couple. We'd just celebrated our 5th wedding anniversary, but we'd been a unit in the newsroom for a full decade. People looked at us with that mix of envy and admiration. They saw the seamless partnership, the way I could anticipate his needs in the control room, the way he'd publicly thank me at awards dinners. They saw exactly what we wanted them to see. Lately, however, the shine had started to dull. Our ratings were slipping. Not a free fall, just a slow, agonizing bleed. A point here, 2% there, enough to make the station manager, Peterson, a man who sweats spreadsheets and fears innovation, start pacing the halls. The pressure was mounting, and Mark was distant. He was pulling away, not in the classic way, not the late nights or the lipstick on the collar. This was colder, more corporate. He was buried in strategy meetings. That was the new buzzword. And the strategy always seemed to include Chloe Sanders. Chloe was the new hire, fresh from Omaha, or maybe Des Moines, somewhere small enough to make her dangerously ambitious. She was young, pretty in that generic news anchor way, and she understood that men like Mark confused eagerness with talent. She'd been at KDEV 12 for 6 months, and suddenly she was in every important meeting. The real break happened last Tuesday, the big sweeps planning meeting. Sweeps is our lifeblood. It determines our ad rates for the next quarter. I was pitching my centerpiece, a hard-hitting, deeply sourced investigation into zoning fraud at the new stadium development. It was smart, it was important, and it was exclusive. I finished my pitch. The room was quiet. Mark, who usually champions my big swings, just tapped his pen on his legal pad, his eyes flat. "I don't know, Maya," he said, his voice carefully neutral. "It feels heavy, a little complicated for the 6 o'clock audience." Before I could even process the lack of support, Chloe Sanders jumped in, her voice bright and chirpy. "I totally agree with Mark. It's a bit dense. What if we did something more visual, like Denver's most dangerous intersections? We could use the new drone." I barely stopped myself from rolling my eyes. Dangerous intersections. It was a tired, lazy segment we'd literally done 3 years ago. It was the kind of filler you run when you have no ideas. But Mark turned to her and beamed. The full #1 anchor in Denver beam. "Now that," he said, pointing his pen at her, "that has energy. That's fresh. People will watch that." He turned to Peterson, who was already nodding. "I think Chloe's really onto something here." He didn't just disagree with me. He publicly dismissed me, and then he endorsed her. He took my 12 years of expertise and threw it in the trash in favor of a 24-year-old's recycled garbage. A chill, sharper than any Colorado winter, went right through my chest. This wasn't a debate about journalism. This wasn't about the numbers. This was a public shift in allegiance. It was a coup, happening right in front of the interns. I said nothing for the rest of the meeting. That night, at home, I stood in the kitchen as he loosened his tie. "You humiliated me today, Mark. Dangerous intersections, really." He had the audacity to laugh. He walked over, put his hands on my shoulders, the way you'd gentle a spooked horse. "Honey, you are looping. You're overthinking it." His voice was that smooth, reassuring baritone he used on air. "Peterson is breathing down our necks. We needed an easy win. Chloe is just a kid. She's hungry. That's all. It's cute." He kissed my forehead. "You are my producer. Maya. You always will be." He thought that patronizing little kiss on the forehead had fixed it. He thought "it's cute" was enough to erase the public humiliation. But that cold feeling didn't go away. It settled in my stomach, a knot of ice that told me something was fundamentally wrong. I spent the next 2 days going through the motions, nodding in meetings I used to lead, forcing a tight smile when Chloe chirped about her dangerous intersections graphics. Mark was solicitous, overly kind, which was worse. He was the loving husband, worried about his overworked wife. It made my skin crawl. On Thursday, I was paying our bills online, a habit. I handle the money, always have, and there it was, a pending charge on our joint Amex, $512, Vail Residences. My breath caught. Vail Residences, a suffocatingly expensive, pretentious restaurant designed for tourists with more money than taste. Mark knew I hated that place. I'd made fun of it for years. The charge was from 3 nights ago, the night he'd worked late to recut a segment, the night before the disastrous sweeps meeting. $500. That wasn't a working late meal. That wasn't a beer and a burger with the crew. That was a celebration. That was a statement. The cold knot in my stomach tightened into a fist. I wasn't just anxious. I was a journalist. I knew how to dig. I went to our shared phone account. We'd had it for a decade. I'd set up the cloud sync myself. I'd never felt the need to check it. Not really. It felt beneath me. Now, I just felt like a fool. I logged in. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my ears. A dull, sick thud. I went to the photo stream. Nothing. Just boring photos of our dog, a sunset from our vacation last year, screenshots of recipes. Then I saw it. A folder I didn't create. Hidden. I clicked it. My hands were shaking. It wasn't just photos. Oh, there were a few. Them kissing. A blurry selfie in his car. Tacky. Cliched. The kind of mistake you'd expect from an amateur like Chloe. But the rest was work. Screenshots of emails, drafts of memos. My God, even recordings of private Slack conversations. They had been planning this for months. I sat there, the glow of the monitor illuminating my office, and I read my own execution orders. It was all there, a systematic, meticulous plan to destroy me. They hadn't just been sleeping together. They had been conspiring. They'd been actively sabotaging my work. That big stadium investigation. A screenshot proved Mark had anonymously tipped off a source at our main rival, Channel 4 giving them just enough to blunt our scoop. The graphics packages that crashed 2 weeks ago during my lead story, I saw the email where Chloe accidentally uploaded a corrupted file, knowing it would make my segment look sloppy. They were creating a pattern. They were manufacturing my failure. The goal was simple. The ratings were slipping. Peterson was nervous. They just had to convince him that the problem wasn't the market. It wasn't the content. It was me. The stale producer who couldn't keep up. I found the email chain that broke me. It was between Mark and Chloe, sent from his personal account. He was complaining about me questioning his new direction. "She's dead weight, Chloe," he wrote. "She's past her prime and she's dragging us both down with her. Peterson just needs to see it. Then we can finally start the new era." Dead weight. I, who had taught him how to read a 3-camera setup. I, who had held his hand through his father's funeral. I, who had negotiated every single contract that got him to his multi-million-dollar salary. I was dead weight. And then, the final, brutal twist. The last email in the chain. It was a draft of a new show open, a script. "We need to make the announcement special." Mark had written. "Peterson agrees. We do it live. The first night of sweeps. We rebrand the show Denver Primetime with Mark and Chloe. It'll be the ultimate launch. Next Friday. Not even 8 days from now." They weren't just going to fire me. They were going to do it in the most public way possible. They were going to replace me on my own show, on the biggest night of the television season, and they were going to call it a special announcement. My husband was going to throw me on a funeral pyre and light the match himself. I stared at the glowing screen in my dark office, the email chain burning a hole in my retina. Dead weight. Past her prime. I expected to feel a flood of tears. I expected to shatter. Instead, I felt nothing. The grief, the panic, the love I had felt for that man, it all evaporated in an instant. It was like watching a fire be extinguished by a sudden vacuum. All that was left was a profound, absolute cold. I didn't cry. Crying was a waste of energy, a luxury for people who still had something to lose. I had just lost everything I thought I had, and in doing so, I realized I had only one thing left. I remembered my weapon. I closed the laptop. My hands were steady. He had forgotten. In his new, inflated arrogance, fueled by a 20-something amateur, Mark had forgotten who I really was. He had forgotten what I had done for him. He had forgotten what he had given me. My mind went back 3 years. It was a Tuesday. Mark was supposed to be celebrating. He'd just landed a massive exclusive with a rising star state politician, a story that got him national attention. Instead, he came home at 2 a.m., smelling of stale whiskey and pure terror. He had been reckless. To get his golden boy scoop, he'd made a deal. He'd buried another story, a messy, potentially illegal campaign finance violation by that same politician. It wasn't just burying it. He'd actively taken a small bribe, disguised as a speaker's fee for a charity event that never happened, to ensure the evidence disappeared from the KDev 12 servers. The politician, however, got spooked by a federal inquiry and decided to cut Mark loose, threatening to expose Mark as the one who offered the bribe in the first time. Mark was finished. It wasn't just a firing offense, it was criminal. He sat on our kitchen floor, the great Mark Thompson, weeping like a child, begging me to fix it. And I did. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I got cold, just like this. I spent the next 48 hours calling in every favor I had earned over 15 years in Denver. I used my own reputation as leverage. I met the politician in a hotel bar and laid out, very clearly, how exposing Mark would only lead to a much larger, more thorough investigation by me into his entire history, an investigation that would survive even if Mark was fired. I created a stalemate. The politician, seeing I was more ruthless than Mark, backed down. I saved his career. I saved his life. He was grateful, groveling, but I knew gratitude was temporary. I knew the man I had married. The next day, when the dust settled, I put a pen and a 4-page legal document in front of him. "What's this?" he'd asked, his voice still shaky. "It's a confession," I said, "and you're going to sign it." He refused. "Of course." He blustered. "Maya, this is insane. This could ruin me." "You're already ruined, Mark," I told him, my voice never rising. "I'm the only one who just unruined you. This document details everything. The date you met the politician, the amount you accepted, the specific story you suppressed, the precise violation of journalistic ethics. You will write it all out, in your own hand." He fought me for an hour. Finally, seeing the look in my eyes, he did it. He wrote out all 4 pages. His signature was large and angry. "Good," I said. "Now we're going to the bank." I made him sign it again, in front of a notary. I had a legally binding, notarized confession detailing an act that would not only end his career in broadcast journalism forever, but would likely attract the attention of the district attorney. I took the document from his trembling hand. "This," I told him, "is our new insurance policy. It's insurance for our marriage. It's insurance for our careers. It ensures you never, ever forget that we are a team, and that I am the one holding it together." He called it our insurance. I always knew it was mine. I put it in a safe deposit box at the First National Bank downtown, and I hadn't looked at it since. Until now. Dead weight. He thought I was the anchor holding him down. He forgot I was the one who'd kept his ship from sinking entirely. The next morning, I woke up at 6. I showered. I put on a sharp, dark suit. I didn't go to the station. I drove downtown, arriving at the bank just as it opened at 9 a.m. I signed the ledger, used my key, and was shown to the private viewing room. The box was cold to the touch. I opened it. There, beneath our mortgage documents and a few pieces of my mother's jewelry, was the long, white envelope. I pulled out the 4 pages. I read them over, just to be sure. His handwriting, his signature, the notary's stamp. It was all there. I calmly folded the document, slipped it into the inner pocket of my blazer, and walked out of the bank into the bright morning sunlight. Mark and Chloe wanted to announce a new era on Friday. They had no idea what I had just scheduled for Sweeps Week. I walked back into the KDEV 12 newsroom that afternoon with the confession warm against my chest, a 4-page secret that felt heavier than body armor. The mask was in place. I had been a producer for nearly 20 years. I knew how to create a narrative. Now, I was producing my finest one. I found Mark by the assignment desk, reviewing copy with Chloe. They were standing a little too close. I took a deep breath, summoned the imaginary tears I had banished the night before, and walked over. "Mark." My voice was intentionally weak, watery. He looked up, annoyed at the interruption, but his expression shifted to concern when he saw my face. The fake, on-air concern. "Maya, hey, you okay? You look pale." I put my hand on his arm. Chloe watched, her head tilted with a kind of predatory curiosity. "Can we talk in your office?" He agreed. In his office. I closed the door and I crumbled. I let my shoulders slump. I rubbed my temples. "Mark, I am so sorry," I whispered. He was confused. "Sorry for what?" For this week. For the meeting. I've been so stressed about the ratings, about Peterson, and I took it out on you. And on Chloe." I looked up at him, manufacturing a look of embarrassed self-awareness. That was just... It was ridiculous jealousy. I heard myself, and I sounded like a crazy person. "You're right. She's a kid. She has good ideas. I'm just feeling... old." It was a brilliant move. I had fed his exact narrative back to him. I had confirmed his dead weight diagnosis. He visibly relaxed. The tension left his shoulders. He was being magnanimous now, the king forgiving a court jester. "Oh, honey," he said, pulling me into a hug that felt like being wrapped in ice. "It's okay. I told you. You're just looping. It's been a stressful time for all of us." "I know," I said, my voice muffled against his expensive shirt. I don't want things to be weird. I want to clear the air with her, too. I'll go talk to her." I pulled back, wiping a non-existent tear. "You're right. Her ideas are fresh. We need that." His smile was pure, smug relief. He thought he had me. He thought the crazy wife had been put back in her box. I walked straight from his office to Chloe's desk. She looked up like a startled bird. "Chloe, can I buy you a coffee or a drink tonight?" She blinked. "Oh, Maya. Sure, I guess." We went to the bar down the street, the one all the news crews frequented. I ordered a vodka soda. She ordered something pink with a cherry. I played the part of the seasoned mentor, the woman who had shattered glass ceilings and was now graciously handing the hammer to the next generation. "Listen," I said, swirling my drink. "I was an absolute bitch in that meeting. There's no excuse. The truth is, you're sharp, and I'm tired. I see someone like you, and I get defensive. It's my failing, not yours." She lapped it up. She was so desperate to be seen as a serious player that she completely missed the con. "Oh, no, Maya," she said, all fake humility. "Your stadium piece is amazing. I've learned so much from you." "Well, you're the future," I said, raising my glass. Mark sees it, Peterson sees it, and I see it now, too. When I got back to the station, I saw them. They were in the alcove by the sales department. They thought they were hidden. I watched Mark say something, and Chloe laughed, covering her mouth. Then, he looked at her, and she at him, and they shared this long, slow look. It was a look of pure, unadulterated victory, the look of two people who had just successfully managed a difficult problem. They thought I was handled. They thought I was a non-threat. That was when my real work began. For the next 4 days, I was the perfect supportive colleague. I praised Chloe's graphics for dangerous intersections. I was quiet in meetings. And every night, long after they had gone to their $500 dinners or my own house, I stayed late. My executive producer login gave me access to everything. Everything. They were so sloppy, so arrogant. They never even thought to cover their tracks from me. I started with the server logs. I cross-referenced the exact times my segments had technical difficulties. And there it was. Chloe's login, accessing and corrupting the files, 30 seconds before they were supposed to go to air. I moved to the internal Slack. They were stupid enough not to delete their direct messages. I read everything. Mark Peterson is buying the Maya is cracking narrative. Just keep pushing the intersections angle. He loves shiny objects. Chloe. She looked so pathetic today. Are you sure she won't be a problem? Mark. She's a problem I'm handling. By Friday, she'll just be a memory. I saved every conversation. I printed them to a secure PDF, time-stamped and verified. I copied them to a drive that was now living in my gym bag. But I needed the final proof. The human proof. I had access to the building's security system. As EP, I could review footage from any camera for quality control. I knew they were meeting. I just had to find it. I checked the feed for the night of the Vale Residence's dinner. They left separately, but I tracked them. Mark went to the third-floor edit bays, a dark, quiet part of the building after hours. Chloe followed 10 minutes later. I clicked on the camera for Edit Bay 3. The infrared lens made them look like ghosts. And there it was. They weren't just talking strategy. He had her pushed up against the Avid system, his hands under her shirt. They were kissing, desperate and ugly, in the very room where I had taught him how to edit his first award-winning story. I hit record. I exported the file. I saved it right alongside the Slack messages, the emails, and the corrupted server logs. I had my stadium investigation. I had my dangerous intersections. I had it all. And they had no idea. My digital arsenal was complete. I had the videos, the server logs, the Slack messages, and the 4-page confession sitting in my purse. I spent the next 2 days, Monday and Tuesday, playing the most convincing role of my life, the beaten, apologetic, slightly pathetic wife. I was a ghost in the newsroom, the dead weight Mark had described. I let Chloe take the lead in the morning meetings. I nodded meekly. I was biding my time, waiting for Friday. They decided to speed things up. On Wednesday morning, all hell broke loose. I walked in with my coffee and was nearly knocked over by Peterson, who was storming out of his office, his face a blotchy, terrifying shade of purple. "Maya, my office. Now!" His voice echoed through the newsroom. Everything stopped. The phones, the keyboards, the chatter. Every single person turned to look at me. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Mark and Chloe at their anchor desk, their faces masks of carefully crafted, "Oh no, what's happening?" concern. I walked into Peterson's office. The air was thick with the smell of burnt coffee and panic. "Shut the door," he seethed. Before the latch even clicked, he threw a stack of papers on his desk. "What the hell is this?" "Maya, I just got off the phone with Jim Rylance." "From Rylance Construction." My stomach dropped, but not with fear. With a cold, clear recognition. Rylance Construction. They were the main developers on the stadium project, the very investigation I had pitched for sweeps, the one Mark had called too heavy. They were also, not coincidentally, one of the 3 largest advertisers on KDEV 12. What about them? I asked, keeping my voice steady. What about them? He shrieked. Jim Rylance just accused us of blackmail. He said he received an anonymous email with a full transcript of your interview with that disgruntled contractor, the one you've been working on for 6 weeks. He's threatening a multi-million-dollar lawsuit for defamation and corporate espionage, and he's pulling every dollar of advertising from this station, effective immediately. He was in my face now, spittle flying from his mouth. That is a 7-figure hole in our Q4 budget. Maya, explain. Yourself? Just then, there was a timid knock. The door opened. It was Mark and Chloe, standing in the doorway, the picture of solidarity. Pete, is everything okay? Mark asked, his voice dripping with smooth anchorman concern. We heard the yelling. Is Maya all right? She is not all right, Peterson roared. He turned back to me. This is your story, your source. How did this get out? I looked at Mark. He met my gaze, his eyes full of nothing but cold pity. This was the master stroke. This was how they accelerated the timeline. They hadn't just sabotaged my segments. They had actively leaked my biggest investigation, the only real journalism I was still fighting to produce directly to the target. They knew exactly what would happen. They knew Rylance was our biggest sponsor. They knew Peterson was a coward ruled by money. This wasn't just to get me fired. This was to get me disgraced, to make it look like I was so sloppy, so past my prime, that I had single-handedly torpedoed the station's finances. I don't know, I said. It was the only honest thing I could say. You don't know. Peterson laughed, a high-pitched, hysterical sound. And then Mark stepped in, placing a comforting hand on Peterson's shoulder. The betrayer, playing the savior. Pete, calm down. Let's breathe. He looked at me, his face a mask of profound disappointment. Maya, he said, his voice low. I can't believe you would be this careless, after all the pressure you've been under, to let your sourcing get this exposed. You know Rylance is our white whale. Maya, this is destroying us. Chloe, standing behind him, just shook her head, as if she was too horrified to even speak. The performance was flawless. I just stared at him, the man I had saved from prison, the man I had built from nothing. He was standing there, using my own work as a knife and twisting it with a look of sad regret. That was all Peterson needed to hear. Mark had given him the out. He had validated the narrative. Maya is the problem. Maya is done. Peterson's face hardened. The panic was gone, replaced by the flat, dead-eyed certainty of an executioner. Maya, you're suspended, he said, his voice suddenly quiet. Effective immediately. You are off the sweeps production. You are not to touch the rundown. You are not to contact any of the staff. Frankly, you're lucky Rylance hasn't filed the suit yet. Or I'd be having security escort you out. He straightened his tie. You're done here. I don't know what happens next, but you are done. I stood there, frozen, as the words hit me. Suspended, banned from my own show. Peterson looked past me, at the 2 vipers in the doorway. Mark, Chloe, I need you both. You're in charge now. The show, sweeps, it's all on you. Starting Friday, I need you to fix this. Of course, Pete, Mark said, his voice strong and reassuring. Don't worry. We'll handle it. We'll launch the new era. They were going to get exactly what they wanted. I was a pariah. My keycard to the producer's booth in the control room was deactivated before I even got back to my desk. I was officially locked out, relegated to the open plan sales area, told to gather my personal items from my desk while an intern watched me. The humiliation was dizzying, a physical sickness. I sat in my car in the parking garage for an hour, the silence roaring in my ears. I had all the ammunition in the world, the confession, the videos, the Slack messages, but they had just taken away my cannons. I had the truth, but no access to the airwaves. I couldn't just email the files to a competitor. That was a lawsuit, and it wasn't my style. This wasn't just about exposing him. It was about justice. It had to be on my terms, on my show. I needed a ghost in the machine. I needed an ally inside the walls, and I knew exactly who it was. Benji. Benji was the Master Control Technical Director. He was a lifer, a man who seemed to be part of the building's original wiring. He was pale, quiet, wore the same gray cardigan every day, and lived on a diet of stale coffee and vending machine peanuts. He was also the most brilliant technical mind in the state. While Mark and I were the faces of the show, Benji was its central nervous system. He was the one who actually put the show on the air, and he owed me. It was 5 years ago, the Super Bowl. The single most watched, highest revenue broadcast of the entire year. Benji had been running the board, exhausted after a 16-hour shift. He hit the wrong button. Instead of rolling the final 58 seconds of the game-winning drive, he rolled a 3-minute block of local car dealership ads. By the time he realized the error, the game was over. The phones lit up. The FCC was called. Peterson, in a blind, apoplectic rage, demanded Benji be fired before the night was over. I stepped in. I was the executive producer, and I took the hit. I went to Peterson and I lied. I said I had changed the log at the last minute, that I'd given Benji a confusing verbal cue, that it was a producer error, not a technical one. I took the formal reprimand in my file. Benji, who had 2 kids and an ex-wife, kept his job. He never thanked me. He didn't need to. The next day, he just gave me a short, sharp nod as I passed him in the hall. It was a soldier's acknowledgement. A debt logged. I found him not in the main control room, but in the dark, cold server farm in the basement, a place only he and the engineers ever went. The hum of the machines was deafening. He was checking a fiber optic cable. He didn't look up. Your keycard's been deactivated. Maya, you're not supposed to be in here. I know. Benji, I need to talk to you. He stood up, wiping his hands on a rag. He looked tired. I heard what happened. Peterson's running around like a maniac. You leaking that Rylance story? Sloppy. Not like you. I didn't leak it, Benji. He finally looked at me, his eyes adjusting to the dim light. Okay. Mark and Chloe Sanders leaked it, to frame me, to get me suspended so they could take over the show together, starting Friday. Benji said nothing. He just watched me. He wasn't a man who cared about office gossip. I know what you're thinking, I said. It's just newsroom politics. It's not. It's personal. Maya, I just push the buttons. I'm not. I don't get involved. I know. I took out my phone. I didn't show him the confession. That was too complex. I showed him the one thing that needed no context. This is why they did it. This is why I'm being railroaded. I hit play on the security footage. The silent, grainy, infrared video of Mark and Chloe in Edit Bay 3. Benji watched the whole thing. His face didn't change, but a muscle in his jaw twitched. He hated Mark. I knew he did. Mark was the kind of anchor who blamed the crew for his own mistakes, who would yell at the audio guy for a buzz that was just him tapping his $1,000 pen on the desk. Benji was old guard. He had no tolerance for this kind of sloppy, arrogant behavior. He handed the phone back to me. The golden boy, he said, his voice flat with disgust. And you saved my job. The Super Bowl. This isn't about that. Benji, this is about... Well, maybe it is. I need a favor. I need to get back into my own control room. He crossed his arms. They'll have security. You won't even get past the lobby. I'll find a way, but I need you inside. I need to broadcast. Not from the server, but live. His eyes widened, just slightly. Maya, that's... I need 30 seconds. Benji, that's all. I was speaking his language now. Technical, precise. Friday night, at the top of the show, right after the open at 6:01. Mark will be on camera, reading his welcome. I need uncontrolled access to the graphics server and the main teleprompter feed. That's impossible, he said flatly. I'm running the show, but Peterson will be standing right over my shoulder. It's the sweeps launch. The whole team will be watching. That's why you're going to create a diversion, I said. A big one. And I need one more thing. I need a hot mic. A live feed from my old producer's desk, in the back of the room, patched directly to the main broadcast line. I need to be able to override their mics. He stared at the server rack, calculating. This was his career, his pension, his life. He was weighing it against the debt. Finally, he let out a slow breath. Board C, the one Mark always complains about. What about it? I'm going to make that buzz he's always hearing a reality, Benji said. A massive audio feedback loop. It'll sound like the whole board is about to catch fire. It'll pull every eye in that room, including Peterson's. They'll panic. I'll have to kill their mics and reroute the audio. In the confusion, you'll have 30 seconds. I finished. He nodded. Once. That same, short, sharp nod from 5 years ago. I'll give you your window. Maya, I'll patch the mic. But you only get one shot. And if you get caught, I don't know you. You were never here, I said. Get out of here. Maya, your keycard really doesn't work. I spent Thursday in a self-imposed exile, locked in my house, letting the silence wind me up. I didn't return Mark's texts. I let his calls go to voicemail. He was probably worried, not about me, but that his unstable wife might do something rash and unpredictable before his big night. He was right to be worried. Around 3 p.m., I put my plan in motion. I took off all my makeup. I washed my face and didn't put on moisturizer, letting my skin look tight and pale. I put on the oldest, grayest sweater I owned, one I usually reserved for painting. I pulled my hair back into a messy, functional ponytail. I didn't sleep the night before, so the dark circles under my eyes were genuine. I looked, in short, like a woman who had been broken. I drove to the station. I didn't have a key card, so I had to buzz in at the front entrance like a visitor. The receptionist looked at me with open pity. Oh, Maya, I'll let Mr. Peterson's assistant know you're here. I was made to wait in the lobby for 10 minutes. A calculated power move. Finally, the assistant came and got me, walking me through the newsroom. I could feel the whispers, the sudden silence as I passed. People stared at my reflection in the monitors rather than look at me directly. I stood in Peterson's doorway. He looked up, annoyed. Maya, I was told you were coming, but I don't see what we have to discuss. HR will be contacting you. This was the performance. I let my lip tremble. I let my hands shake. I took a ragged breath and the tears, the fake, hot, actress tears I had been practicing, welled up and spilled over. Pete, please, I whispered. I let my voice crack. He immediately looked uncomfortable. He hated this. Oh, for God's sake, Maya, don't do this. It's done. You were reckless. You cost us Rylance. I know, I choked out, stepping into his office. I didn't even wipe the tears. I let them run. I know. I'm not here to fight that. I know I'm finished. His posture changed. The defensiveness left him. He had been preparing for a fight, for a wrongful termination argument. My total surrender disarmed him completely. Well, he said, leaning back in his chair, it's good that you're accepting it. I've lost everything, I whispered, looking at the floor. My job, my reputation, Mark, he won't even talk to me. I added that last part just for flavor. I'm just broken. This is a tough business. Maya, he said, adopting the tone of a wise, sad father. I know. I took a deep, shuddering breath. I'm not asking for my job. I'm not asking for anything. I looked up at him, my eyes pleading. Just one thing, one last favor, Pete, for the 12 years I gave this place. He was wary. What is it? Tomorrow night. The sweeps launch. The tears started again, this time quiet, hopeless. I know I can't be part of it. I know I'm not allowed to produce. But, please, don't make me be at home. Let me be here, in the control room. He started to shake his head. Maya, I can't. Not to work, I said, holding up my hands. God, no. Just let me sit at the old tech desk, in the back, the one no one uses. I won't talk to anyone. I won't touch anything. I swear. I built that show. It was my life. I just want to watch my last one quietly. I just want to be in the room when it ends for me. He stared at me. I could see the wheels turning. He was feeling guilty. Yes. But more than that, he was a manager terrified of a lawsuit. A crying, hysterical, fired employee was a huge liability. But a crying, accepting, defeated employee who just wanted a last moment. That was manageable. That was closure. Letting me do this small, pathetic favor, would look good in a deposition. It would prove he wasn't a monster. It would prove I had accepted my fate. Please, Pete, I whispered. I'll be invisible. I can't say goodbye to it from my couch. He let out a long, heavy sigh. He was buying it. This is highly irregular. Maya. I know. You sit in the back. You don't speak. You don't touch a single button. You are a ghost. Got it. Yes. I breathed, relief flooding me. Yes. Thank you, Pete. Thank you. You won't even know I'm there. Fine, he grumbled. Now, go home. I don't want you wandering the halls. Be here at 5:30 tomorrow. No earlier. I walked out of his office, keeping my head down, my shoulders slumped. I walked through the newsroom. As I passed the anchor desk, I saw them, Mark and Chloe. They had been watching the whole exchange through Peterson's glass wall. Mark looked at me, his face a perfect blend of pity and discomfort. He'd seen his hysterical wife, confirming his narrative. Chloe just looked smug. She couldn't hide it. Her eyes glittered. They thought I was coming to my own execution. They thought I was so broken, so pathetic, that I would voluntarily come and watch them dance on my grave. The idea of me sitting in the back, in the dark, crying silently while they took my chair. It wasn't just a victory for them. It was the cherry on top. It made their triumph complete. I got in the elevator, and as the doors closed, the tears stopped instantly. I stood up straight. The mask was off. They had no idea. They thought they were building a new era. They were just building their own scaffold. Friday. 5:30 p.m. The newsroom at KDF 12 was electric, but it wasn't the good kind of energy. It wasn't the adrenaline buzz of a breaking story. It was the strained, high-wire tension of a forced performance. It was the first night of sweeps, the night Mark and Chloe were taking over, and the air was thick with unspoken questions and feigned enthusiasm. I could hear them, all the way from my dark corner, down the hall, in the makeup room. Mark and Chloe were holding court. I could hear Chloe's laugh, a sharp, artificial trill that cut through the low hum of the station. They were getting the star treatment the full hour in the chair, the head makeup artist, the senior audio tech fawning over their mics. They were preparing for their coronation, the new golden couple. The entire station was orbiting around their bright, shiny, new painted lie. And then there was me. I was exactly where I promised Peterson I would be. In the darkest, coldest corner of the control room, at the defunct tech desk that hadn't been used in 5 years, the monitors on it were dark. I was a ghost, just as I'd promised. I had a small cardboard box on the desk, the kind you use for old files. I had put a few worthless items in it, an old Emmy nomination plaque, a KDEV 12 branded mug, a framed photo of me and Mark from 5 years ago. I was methodically, silently, wrapping them in old newspaper and placing them in the box. the perfect picture of a woman sadly packing up the remnants of her life. Beside me, Benji worked. He was at his master control station, a fortress of glowing buttons and screens. He was all business, running his pre-show checks. He never looked at me. He just ran his diagnostics, his face illuminated by the data. His presence was the only thing keeping my heart from hammering its way out of my chest. The door to the control room opened, letting in a shaft of bright light from the studio floor. It was Mark. He was in his full uniform, the sharp navy suit, the power red tie, his hair perfectly coiffed, his face glowing with broadcast-ready makeup. He was the golden boy, ready for his close-up. He came in to get his customary glass of water, the kind he always demanded be at a specific temperature. He saw me in the shadows. He stopped. He'd been expecting me, but the sight of me, small and pathetic in the corner with my sad little box, seemed to give him a jolt, not of guilt, of pity. It was the final, satisfying validation he needed. He walked over, his expensive shoes silent on the rubber floor. He leaned against the console, looking down at me. "Maya," he said, his voice that low, comforting baritone he used for tragic stories. "I am truly sorry it all turned out this way." I stopped packing the box. I didn't look up. Not right away. It's just what's best for the station, you know," he continued, justifying himself. "We need a new direction. A fresh start. I slowly lifted my head. I summoned the tears. I let my eyes well up, letting the moisture catch the single dim light above Benji's station. I looked at this man I had built. This man who was standing here delivering my eulogy while I was still breathing. "Good luck, Mark," I whispered, and I let my voice crack on his name. "You deserve all of it." It was the perfect line, a beautiful, terrible double meaning that he was too arrogant, too stupid to ever catch. He took it as the ultimate compliment. He saw the tears. He heard the broken-voiced surrender. He saw me validating his entire coup. A slow smile spread across his face. It was not his on-air smile. This was real. It was pure, unadulterated arrogance. The smile of a man who had won, who had outsmarted the dead weight, and was now free. "Thank you, Maya," he said. He picked up his water, took a sip, and without looking back, he walked out of the control room and onto the studio floor to take his throne. The studio lights went to full power, flooding the set on the other side of the glass. The control room went dark, the way it always does before a broadcast, illuminated only by the wall of 100 glowing monitors, 5, 59, and 30 seconds. Peterson was standing directly behind Benji, his arms crossed, sweating through his suit jacket. The entire production team was wired, their eyes darting between the clock and the set. On the monitors, Mark and Chloe were a picture of perfection. He was adjusting his tie. She was practicing her smile, a wide, empty, brilliant white expression. They looked like porcelain dolls. "Stand by, everyone," Benji said, his voice the only calm in the room. He began the final countdown, a ritual I had heard him perform 10,000 times. But this time, it was for me. In 10, 9, 8. I watched the monitors. Camera 1, on Mark. Camera 2, on Chloe. The little red tally lights blinked on. They were live to the world. 7, 6, 5. My hand, hidden in the shadow of my sad cardboard box, was wrapped around the USB drive. It was small, black, and cold. My heart wasn't pounding anymore. It was perfectly, terrifyingly still. I was the eye of my own storm. 4. Benji's left hand hovered over his audio board. His right hand was on the main switcher. 3. Now. Benji slammed his palm onto a panel. A deafening, high-pitched squeal, a feedback loop from hell, blasted through the control room speakers. It was so loud, so violent, it sounded like a physical assault. "What the?" Peterson yelped, clutching his ears. Network failure on board C, Benji yelled, his performance masterful. He was an artist. Lost audio. I've lost main audio. Every single person in the control room, including Peterson, lunged toward Benji's station, their backs to me, screaming at the monitors. What do you mean? Lost audio. Fix it, Peterson shrieked. 2. Benji continued his count, his voice unheard by anyone but me in the chaos. In that single, beautiful, orchestrated second of pure panic, I moved. My hand came up from the box. The desk I was sitting at was dead, but the small USB port on the side, the one Benji had rewired an hour ago, was very much alive. I slid the drive in. The connection was immediate. 1. I hit enter. A single command, a small batch file I had written myself. In an instant, my prepared files, the confession, the Slack messages, the security footage bypassed the producer's rundown and uploaded directly to the main graphics server. My script, the one I had memorized, the one I had typed and saved as a simple text file, shot directly into the teleprompter feed. I looked at Benji. He was frantically hitting buttons, fighting his manufactured problem. He looked at me, a quick, barely perceptible flick of his eyes. He tapped a single unlabeled key. A tiny green light appeared on my console, one no one else would ever notice. My mic was hot. My producer's mic, the one I was supposed to be banned from, was now the main audio feed for all of Denver. I'm rerouting standby, Benji yelled to the room. He fixed the problem. The god-awful squeal stopped. Peterson was breathing like a winded bull. The crew was frantic. What the hell was that? Benji, Peterson panted. Don't know, sir, Benji said, his eyes on the clock. But we're on the air. Audio is live. They had all missed it. The chaos had lasted maybe 15 seconds. But in television, 15 seconds is an eternity. I looked through the glass, at Mark. His face was gleaming under the lights. He hadn't heard the chaos in the control room. His earpiece was feeding him a clean signal. He was looking at the teleprompter, waiting for his line. And on the prompter, my words were waiting for him. The show's opening music, the theme I had personally approved 8 years ago, swelled to its climax. 6 o'clock. On camera 1, Mark's face filled the screen. He was glowing, radiant, the absolute pinnacle of broadcast confidence. Good evening, Denver, he beamed. Tonight, we have a very special announcement. He paused, his eyes flicking down to the teleprompter to read the script he and Chloe had written. But it wasn't their script. It was mine. I watched his face on the monitor in the control room. It was a slow, beautiful implosion. The smile didn't vanish. It froze. His eyes widened, scanning the words. He tried to speak, to recover, but the only words in front of him were mine. We are, he stammered. The golden boy was sweating. The makeup on his forehead began to shine. Beside him, Chloe looked at her own prompter. Her face, which had been bright and eager, collapsed. She went bone white. She looked like she was going to be sick, live, on her debut night. In the control room, Peterson was confused. What is he doing? Why is he stalling? Is the prompter down? Prompter is running, sir, Benji said calmly. I hit the button. On the massive 50-foot screen behind Mark and Chloe, the KD EV12 logo vanished. It was replaced by page 1 of the 4-page, notarized confession. Mark's desperate, angry handwriting, detailing his crimes. His signature, huge and damning, was visible to the entire city. Mark saw the graphic change on his monitor. He looked like he'd been shot. I leaned into my hot mic, my voice, cold, clear, and perfectly modulated, overrode theirs. Good evening, Denver. I am Maya Walsh. In the control room, Peterson spun around. Who is that kill that mic? The special announcement my husband, Mark Thompson, was preparing to make, I continued. is that 3 years ago, he accepted a bribe and committed a severe violation of journalistic ethics to cover up a story for a local politician. Benji, as if on cue, switched the graphic. The confession was replaced by the screenshots of the Slack messages. Mark's dead weight comment. Chloe's, she looked so pathetic. And he has been sleeping with his colleague, Chloe Sanders. My voice echoed, as they conspired to illegally sabotage my work and orchestrate my suspension. In the studio, it was pure chaos. Chloe let out a high-pitched, wailing sob and physically crumpled onto the desk, her head in her hands. Mark, in a blind panic, was screaming, "No, no, no." He was tearing at his tie, trying to rip off his lavalier microphone, his face a mask of sweat and terror. "Turn it off! Turn it off!" Peterson was screaming, his voice cracking. "Benji, go to black, kill the broadcast." "I'm trying, sir," Benji yelled. In his panic to hit the master switch, he knocked his huge, full cup of coffee directly into the main switching board. A shower of sparks erupted. The monitors in the control room flashed. Then half of them went dead. A smell of burnt sugar and fried wiring filled the air. "I cannot, sir," Benji shouted over the din. "The board is shorted. The entire system is down. I am locked out." I leaned in one last time, my mic still the only thing live. He replaced me tonight. But this is his signed confession. Now the whole city knows the truth. I hit my mute button. The little green light went dark. I calmly took off my headset and placed it on the dead console. The control room was a war zone. Peterson was on his phone, screaming at master control, trying to get the station off the air. The other techs were just staring, frozen in disbelief, at the smoking, coffee-soaked ruins of the main board. I picked up my small cardboard box of personal items. I looked at Benji. He was already pulling at the fried components, playing his part to the end. I gave him one. Single nod. I turned and walked out of the control room. I walked through the silent newsroom, past the interns and associate producers who were staring, mouths open, at the live feed. I didn't run. I walked, straight out the front doors, into the cool night air, leaving the entire station, my career, and my husband's life burning down on live television behind me. Thank you for listening to my story. Let's get in on the conversation. Comment below and let me know your thoughts. And tell me where in the world you are listening from. Please subscribe to Lily Revenge Stories and give this video a like. And finally, please hit that hype button so this story can be heard by more people.